This is the 8-Bit Beast, and welcome to my Save Tooty speedrun in 3207. So this category is an interesting one. There's normally like two different credit sequences in Banjo-Kazooie. There's the one credits when you beat the Furnace Fun quiz towards the end of the game, and you're all happy, you've saved Tooty, but then at the end of that credit sequence they say, oh, you've got to get back into the lair and go and fight Grunty at the end. And then you sort of get the real credits at the end of the game. This category just gets the credits where you beat Furnace Fun and save Tooty, and then it doesn't go and fight Grunty at the end. Now that seems like it would be quite similar to normal any percent, but it's actually about half the length of normal any percent. Normally after you've saved Tooty, you go up the lair a little bit further. There's a new note door which needs 810 notes, but you've already got 765 notes at that point. So it's just an extra about 50 notes or so that you'd need to collect, and another 25 jiggies that you need to collect. But if we allow glitches, it turns out that you can get to Furnace Fun with only 260 notes. So this is much quicker than normal any percent that would normally need 810 notes. There are TAS only skips for the 810 note door, but nothing we can really do in RTA yet. So the actual purpose behind this category is to really see what any percent would look like if we could find 810 note door skip. So we're coming into Grunty's lair here, and I will just mention briefly that I've done a little glitch to start off the run. You may have seen at the start of the footage that I died in a Furnace Fun minigame, that's called FFM, so when we go into Mumbo's Mountain we're going to have all the moves. Now, usually on FFM, for any percent, you would get all the moves. For this category I'm actually not going to learn Flying or Gold Feathers through FFM. Main reason is when you learn Flying from Bottles in the run, he gives you 25 red feathers. So I'm just going to be getting that top up rather than running around collecting red feathers. It might be slightly more optimal to learn Flying through FFM, but then we have to route out all the feathers, and if you miss any of the flight sections, you're just screwed. So it's nice to have a little bit more than we might otherwise need. So you'll notice that I'm doing lots of rolling movement here when I get into Mumbo's Mountain. That's when I can get into Talon's Rod and start moving very quickly. And the goal of this run is just to get a whole bunch of notes and Mumbo tokens. All we need to do is get to Furnace Fun for the end of the run. So I'll be getting 4 out of 5 Mumbo tokens here. The 5th one is down by Conga, and you need to feed Chimpy the orange to get that Mumbo token. There is a skip to get it slightly quicker, but it's just not worth it in this run at all. So I'll be going through just getting notes and 4 out of 5 of the tokens here. In this footage, I do skip the trip into Mumbo's skull for those 4 notes. I timed it after this run that it was actually worth getting those 4 notes. I'll talk about which 4 I would skip a little bit later on. So the route here is still developing a lot, but I'm fairly happy with the route in this video. Okay, into Ticker's Tower, we've got Ticker's Skip coming up. So basically what you can do is jump on these slopes. The slope should slip you off after a second, but as long as you're over the slope for a second or less, you're pretty much fine and you won't slip off. So we get the 6 notes in there and also the token. So this route's looking pretty similar to any percent, but you'll notice as it starts opening up, we start skipping a lot of notes that we'd normally be getting in any percent. So the real threshold here is the 260 note door, so that's the sort of minimum amount that we need to get to Furnace Fun. There are theoretical ways to maybe skip 260 note door if you have the washing machine, but that would take you doing all the bottles bonus puzzles, and then it would actually just not be worth it compared to collecting 260 notes. And in a TAS you can beat this game with 0 notes using something called bit clips, but we won't be able to do those type of bit clips in this run, although we will see a few other bit clips. Just finishing off Mumbo's Mountain, we're going to do a little quick dive into the water. Quick dive is just basically when you stop talon trotting and you fall into the water, Banjo will sink straight down into that animation. Only a couple more notes and we'll head out. So you might notice that I only grabbed 1 jiggy just to get into Mumbo's Mountain. That's going to be the only jiggy in the run. It turns out that you can get into pretty much all the other levels without paying. Get into them either with Banjo and Kazooie or with the bee, which you can take all through the game. But we actually don't need to go into that many levels in this run, because we're just trying to get to Furnace Fun and we only need 260 notes. We really only have to go into 3 levels to get the 260 notes, and then Mad Monster Mansion and Click Clockwood for their transformations. So it's 5 out of the 9 levels. With any percent, because it's 810 notes, pretty much you would need to go into all 9 levels. And that is one of the reasons why we sort of came up with this category. We'd like to see how fast any percent could be if we had 810 note door skip. Okay, coming in we got TTC early. We've got a little lag clip to get into the cannon here. So if we just turn around and flick the camera to the right, Banjo can jump straight up through. The whole point of that camera setup is just to get a lag frame, and the game speeds up Banjo to compensate for lag. So with that bit of extra speed, we go through the cannon and straight into TTC. The water does stop, so we have to flutter underneath and then ground pound up through to get into the level itself. Now, any Banjo runner is probably about to cringe at the route that I'm about to do. I'm going to go left, which you basically never see. Essentially, I'm just going left to grab the token behind Nipper, and then we'll go back to a normal TTC route. But since Nipper essentially just has notes and jiggies, notes and a jiggy inside, it's not really worth doing that in this run, since we really mainly need tokens. You'll see me getting many tokens, which are quite far out of the way compared to normal any percent routes. Just going to grab these from the tree, and as with the trend, I'm not going to go into the ship for that first 4 notes, because that would just be notes, and it's not really worth going into a room to just get notes in this category. If you think about it, we've got 3 levels to get 260 notes, so there's really 40 notes that I'm trying to skip in these first 3 levels. There's a bit of complication though, I do need 180 notes by the end of this level, just to get through that note door. So Bubblegloop Swamp, you need to skip 20 in there. Unfortunately, I missed the token there, but we're just going to try and re-swim here. Now, the thing about this category is it's pretty brutal in terms of your hard lair movement tricks. Any percent is already quite difficult. This category has 1 more of the FP early clips than any percent. So just in terms of tricks, it's quite difficult to run, and that's why I'm having little movement mistakes in my run there, because I'm really just waiting for a run which hits all those tricks. Since it's a pretty low probability you're going to actually finish this run getting everything first try. Just grabbing a token there. I'm also going to grab a couple of eggs here. Eggs are pretty important in this category. You need 3 to break the web for FP early, and then I'm going to be using another 3 to break a web for a cauldron later on. Coming up is a cool little camera minute that I do for the lockup here. So with this lockup, you'll notice I'm going to flutter past the note here. I'm going to walk forward to the next one and get in Talon Trot. Now that is slower than Talon Trotting on that first note that I touch, but it loads the lockup for just long enough that I get this wonderful cycle here, and you should be able to jump straight in and straight out, grabbing all 5 notes in the process. So that little bit of movement slowdown saves quite a lot of time when you actually get to the lockup. Okay, coming through here, we've got the stairs section next, although what I'm going to do is actually go out here and get this token. This is one of the tokens that's almost slow enough that we'd cut it out, but considering we need 45 tokens in essentially 3 and a bit levels, it's not really worth skipping any tokens we can possibly get. 2 tokens in there, and we'll climb back up. Alright, so generally what's going to happen in this section, in like a standard any percent route, we go down to Nipper now, but that's sort of why I got the token behind Nipper before. Dipping down to Nipper and then dipping back up is pretty slow. So I've purposely left some notes around here that I'm just going to get instead. Unfortunately, with learning Fly, there's some complications with the route. Normally the health route works out really well in any percent when we don't talk to Bottles, but in this route we talk to Bottles and he fills up our health. So I come into TTC on full health, so I'm going to try and talk to Bottles on full health, which I did, and then he doesn't refill our health. If you talk to him on lower than full health, it just takes a bit longer. But normally you'd be hitting this shrapnel in here before you talk to Bottles. I'm going to hit this shrapnel right at the end. So that gives me 2 damage right away. And I've also taken another 2 damage just off various falls earlier on in the level. Sorry, another 1 damage. And that sets me up pretty well for a death warp. Now, in theory, I could just walk straight out of TTC, because the exit to the level's right there next to me where I am now. But generally we like to death warp in Banjo, mainly just because it puts you back on full health and puts you back to the start of the level. So TTC, that's still a work in progress, that route, but essentially that's one of the better ones I came up with. Health management makes it a bit of a pain, and some of the earlier ones that I was doing, actually, I just walked back to the exit. I didn't even take a death warp. But we are going to need all 5 of our health coming up very soon. Now, although it's not worth going into rooms for notes, it is worth going into rooms for Mumbo tokens. So we're just going to get heaps of Mumbo tokens here. And that's one of the weird things about this route. You can think of this as like, what would any percent look like if we had 810 skip? And it essentially looks like collecting a whole bunch of Mumbo tokens really quick. Which is kind of a cool premise. Originally, any percent was all about reducing the number of jiggies we could collect, and jiggies were the real time saver. Now it's currently notes in the current any percent route. We've got to get 810 notes. But if any percent had 810 note door skip, it would be all about getting Mumbo tokens quickly. So it'd be a nice little full circle if we could get 810 skip. Here we're doing Bubblegloop early, so you'll notice I've done some big barges forward. And we're talon trotting to the right here. Unfortunately, this trick's got a really nasty cue. There's not really a great visual cue or audio cue for it. So after this one, I wait for 10 Kazooie sounds and then press the start button to pause. But if you do that, you get it too early. So I actually hold my finger up a bit higher than the controller and press the start button. And that extra distance my finger has to move puts me back a frame and gets the right frame essentially. From here, we're doing lots of various pause setups. Essentially, what we're trying to do is get into a floating point precise position. And Banjo is going to be able to ground pound through the ground if we do that. So you can think of it, there are like teeny tiny little holes in the ground, pretty much on most floors in the game. And these bit clip setups are just doing consistent movement so that we can ground pound straight through. You might also notice that I'm on 1 health out of 5, and so that's why, even though it was probably slower, I like to route a death warp into TTC so that we get a full health refill coming into this glitch. Okay, so we got 4 health there, and we're just going to go up and grab these notes and a token. This token we do take a damage, but it is worth it. It's quite a fast token to grab. We even get that in the normal any percent route. Now, what I'm thinking is this token here is worth it because you can basically just jump straight up from this leaf onto that pole and grab the token. In this PB, I got 4 of these notes. And the idea behind getting 4 rather than 5 is you should be able to make it out without losing a health, just like what I've done there. And then you can jump straight back onto the leaf, which is in a perfect spot to get back, grab the token and make your way out. Now, I actually did time it after doing this run that it's slightly better to get the 4 notes in Mumbo's skull in Mumbo's Mountain. So, yeah, if I was going to be running this category again, I'd probably be getting those notes instead and doing a reroute here. Okay, grabbing some extra eggs. We really do need a lot of eggs in this route. Unfortunately, note hitboxes can be quite small at times, so they're easy to miss. And then we're following something very similar to the any percent route for Bubblegloop Swamp. So we're just going to peck down to Tank Top here. It is worth going into Tank Top. There's 6 notes in there, but more importantly, there's also a token. And we can get some health to the right here. So by shooting the egg there, essentially I picked this beehive because it means that I only need to get into Talon Trot once. If you just get any old beehive, then you're sort of getting out of Talon Trot and then re-getting into Talon Trot, which takes extra time. With that beehive, you're already out of Talon Trot to ground pound the foot anyway. The other thing is, the other beehive to get health from is up on a high ledge in this level, and then all the health can sort of fall off and you'll miss it. Alright, coming out here, we've got quite a tense section, so we're going to be climbing the huts. First off, there's something called hut jumps, which can be pretty dicey. But essentially with hut jumps, you want to stand as high up as possible on the huts and then jump across. And that just saves you ground pounding the huts and using the shock spring pads. So there we go. I found that angling a little bit forward, so going a little bit forward from center, does make that more consistent. And then we're actually going to get this token right up the top. Now, I thought this token was heaps slow when I routed it in, but I've done a few timings, and this is actually quite fast to get this token. It's even a tiny bit faster than that crate one in Treasure Trove Cove. So here I'm only going to get 3 notes, because ideally I make it back to here without losing a health. I think I screw up this jump though. Yep, I did. That's fine though. So ideally I'd have 4 health here still, and then you can sort of peck low at these Mumbo tokens. And then that's 2 really quick Mumbo tokens to get. I personally think routing these into any percent could be really good. They're fairly quick to get if you can do that low peck consistently. And I only got 3 out of the 5 notes down the bottom there, mainly because we didn't need all 5. Sort of the way the note doors work out, you'll want like multiples of 4 or multiples of 3 to skip, and there's not really many good groups of 4 to skip in Bubblegloop Swamp. So I pick a group of 3 to skip, and essentially it was 1 of the 5 near the egg and then 2 of the 5 near the huts, and that's 3 notes that are quick to skip. Mainly because the way that it works out, you may take 1 more damage even if you go for just 1 more note in the swamp water. Now, normally the any % route is going to sort of do all these maze notes and then go down to the notes sort of by the blue ginger in Bubblegloop Swamp. I'm going to end the route in Mumbo's Skull. So there's a couple of different reasons for this. I want to go into Mumbo's Skull because there is another Mumbo token in there. And in case you can't tell, we need heaps of Mumbo tokens in this route. But the other reason is it's just a really quick death warp. So rather than walking out of Mumbo's Skull, you might as well just take the death warp and go straight back to the start, because loading zones can be pretty slow. And it gets even another benefit, because I can peck into this fire, and you'll notice that Mumbo's now trying to talk to me. So what that achieves is it skips all of Mumbo's text, so that when I go to transform in Mad Monster Mansion, I don't have to go through that text. So you basically, it's not that you skip ever seeing the text, it's that you overlap it with the death animation and save some time that way by doing both at the same time. Alright, coming out of here, this is where the route really diverges from standard 80%. You'll notice that I have 260 notes here. And you'll also notice by this note door the ground is fairly flat, so there's not really much hope of us skipping this note door. You can do it with sandcastle cheats, and in the TAS you can do it with a bit clip, but the mechanics of that bit clip aren't really possible to do RTA, at least not currently. So we really do need 260 notes to get to Furnace Fun in the category right now. One possible way to skip that note door might be to bring the washing machine into that room and grab the Jiggy inside the statue. If you do it with the washing machine, you skip the Jiggy cutscene, and skipping the Jiggy cutscene allows you to do something called the Jiggy despawn glitch, which would let you despawn the 260 note door. Even if we could get the washing machine in there in a reasonable time, it's just not RTA viable to do like despawn glitches in a run. So I don't really see us skipping the 260 note door anytime soon. I would actually say the 810 note door is more likely to be skipped. Okay, coming up, I keep calling this glitch FP early, but it's actually not in this route. Traditionally we'd use this glitch to get into Frazizi Peak, but we don't need to go into Frazizi Peak in this category. We've got all the notes we're going to get, and while there are some quick tokens in Frazizi Peak, it's not worth going all the way in there just for some tokens. So we are going to do the same clip. You've got to get the right height and sort of the right lefty-righty bit. This one's really easy to fail, so this is why this category can be pretty rough to run. If you fail that, then you lose like 45 seconds. But we're going to beat bomb up here and go towards the 350 note door. And so that just saves us getting 90 more notes. Getting 90 notes wouldn't be too slow, it's just this is that little bit quicker for this category. And we'll see that glitch again to get past the 450 note door. And coming up is a glitch called MMM Early, and it's another big clip. First we got to break the gate though. So normally you'd have to break the gate. After we break the gate, we want to get into Mad Monster Mansion. So you normally just run across the Mad Monster Mansion and go in. But with the big clip setups, you need to start those from the start of the room. So we're just going to flutter across here and ground pound up through. For some reason, that whole section has an invisible roof on the top. It's basically the only spot in the game like that. I don't know why it's there. But we're going to talon trot forward. And again, this is another one of those big clips. So these are those like floating point position perfect setups that I was talking about. I'm going to have to pause when that little dot on the ground gets close to the bottom of the screen. And I got the good frame here. So you can probably see with this category, it's like TTC early, then Bubblegloop early, then 350 skip, then Mad Monster Mansion early. Then we're going to do another one of those FP early clips later, and then another bit clip. So the real hard thing about this category is just getting these glitches consistently. So this is the current world record, but this is basically the first PB I got which got all these glitches consistently. And although this run has some time to save on like movement and a little bit of routing, pretty much the fact that it got all these glitches first try, you would need to do that to beat this run, because you just lose so much time if you mess up a bit clip or FP early. This token's a bit funky that we're going to get. I'm actually going to get the logo token. Now I'm going to kill that bat just coming into the room, because I don't want it to be in my way after. So we grab that token in the sink. And then this actually has a double benefit. So rather than shock springing up, since that window's open, you can just high jump up and ground pound through. It's a little bit faster than taking the shock spring pad, and it brings us up to this token. These two tokens are right on the edge of being routed out. They're fairly slow, But one benefit of doing this is it actually gets us to the fountain tokens a bit nicer. So we can jump straight across here and just flutter across the vines. And that gets us straight to the token rather than running around that hedge. So it's not so much that the 2 mansion tokens are super fast, it's that it gets us to the next token quickly as well. Mad Monster Mansion route I wasn't entirely sure about, but this is sort of the fastest way that I found through it. Getting the speed shoes there obviously helps a bit just with movement, because we're going to grab the token around the corner here and then go through to Tumbler Shed. Now this route is really scary in terms of health, because those skeleton limbo guys are random, they can just hit you and then I would die and that would be the run over. So there may be another Mad Monster Mansion route which is less risky in that sense. Okay, so we're going to go up to the church roof here and grab another token. And then just behind the church, there's another token here, just behind the gravestone. Now you would think this token here would be quite slow, but I think I timed it to something like 7 seconds, which is way quicker than I ever thought it would be. And we're going to transform into the pumpkin. So normally in any percent you would take the pumpkin out to get a few more notes. We don't need to do that in this category because we've got all the notes we're going to get. But I will be taking the pumpkin out to get a couple of tokens. This was one that I was on the fence about. I wasn't really sure whether to take the pumpkin out or whether to just do a death warp in here. But I'm fairly happy with what I came up with. So the pumpkin is going to get 2 more tokens. There's sort of the one standard token that the pumpkin usually gets, just in this little maze bit here. Banjo can get this token I'm about to get, but he needs to find his way into the maze, which involves jumping up on some higher surfaces and then getting in. This is where the pumpkin tokens really save time. So there's this token right in the back of the maze, and getting it as Banjo is very slow because you've got to run out. I lure a ghost in here and then take a death warp on that ghost. Which, this is probably one of the tokens that I might cut if I was going to cut any more and route some other tokens in. But it seems pretty quick to just zip there as a pumpkin as the end and then basically just death warp. Okay, now the whole purpose of getting the pumpkin is to raise the water level. If we didn't have to raise the water level, this route would be way quicker, like probably even 10 minutes quicker, maybe even 15 minutes quicker. So you can think of this category as like any percent if we ever found 8-10 skip. But really, water skip is another huge holy grail in this game. And if we could get water level skip, then it would save so much time along with 8-10 skip. But we still have to do this. So this room here with the pumpkin, you have to be the pumpkin to go into the room. Even if you clip into this building as Banjo, the loading zone just does not work without being the pumpkin. So now that we've raised the water level, I'm just doing a reset here. With doing this reset, it achieves a few different things. So it is quicker to just walk out of that building by maybe like 5 or 10 seconds. But if you do the reset, we have to go back up through the pink cauldron, and the pink cauldron does have a Mumbo token right next to it. So that's the reason why I've done it in this category. The other factor is we've got 0 lives, but when you do the reset, it restores you back to 3 lives. So now we're on 3 lives, we're about to get a Mumbo token on the way back up the lair, so it just does seem worth doing the reset there. So before I triggered the pink cauldron near the top of the lair, just near that FP lobby, now I'm going to trigger the pink cauldron further down the bottom. And you'll see that before I trigger it, I'm just going to grab a Mumbo token from behind it. So we got the pumpkin, which needs 20 tokens. We still need to get the bee transformation, and that needs 25 tokens. Now we are going to get some tokens in Click Clock Wood, but I'd rather spend less time grabbing tokens in Click Clock Wood because it's sort of better to grab Mumbo tokens if you're already grabbing notes in the level, since you can sort of grab both. But you'll notice in Mad Monster Mansion, for example, I wanted to grab less tokens in there because you're not really grabbing notes at the same time. So we're going to do this glitch again. It's the same FP early clip, we're just doing different navigation. This clip here is basically the reason why I learned feathers from bottles in this run rather than learning feathers in FFM. You basically got to clip out and then you need to use 9 feathers and then another one for a beak bomb to beak bomb up to the 450 door. And while I could collect a few feathers that are sort of nearby in the route, this just takes so many feathers that it seemed worth talking to bottles just to get that 25 feather top up. The other thing about getting the 25 feathers from bottles is we do get a few extras. So if for any reason I messed up this clip, it would be fine. Now I've overshot the door there, so you've got to do some very tricky navigation to sort of turn around and get in the door. It is absolutely possible to beat bomb straight in the door. But at this point in the run, obviously I'm going to be getting quite nervous, so I've hit almost all the very difficult tricks first try. Last one to hit is Click Clock Wood early, which is easier to get consistent than some of the FP early clips and stuff because it's a 3-frame window. But it is still very nerve-wracking when you're on a fairly good pace to try and hit those glitches. Normally you would jump from the pole to the water switch in this area, but since we're coming up from the token, you can just jump straight up. And this is another quick dive, so similar to what we saw in Mumbo's Mountain. If you're getting into Talon Trot or getting out, Banjo just sinks straight into the water. And that is a lot quicker than swimming down from the top, because you'll notice I'm already at the right height for this tunnel. And optimizing Banjo swimming is always really funny because Banjo will do various strokes to swim through the water, and you kind of don't want to be just starting a stroke and then getting out of the water. You'd like to time it so that you sort of get out of the water at the end of a stroke or something. Pretty much just so that you're getting the most out of that movement speed. Coming up, we also have 640 skip. Basically, as Banjo builds up enough downward speed, you can go through ledges. And so you sort of hook on that ledge. My advice is you press up on the analog stick about 6 times really quickly. So up, neutral, up, about 6 times of that. And you'll hook on, and then you can just hold up from there and you'll clip through if you go to the left. Now, because I learnt flying from bottles, I actually don't know gold feathers at all in this run, and we will not learn gold feathers in this run. So I have to kill that gruntling there. I normally do kill that gruntling in any percent and stuff, because I think it's a little bit risky that he hits you out of your movement when you try and do the bit clip. But I know that a lot of other runners kill the gruntling with a gold feather, so that's not really an option currently in this route. You would have gold feathers if we learnt flying in FFM. Basically, you need flying to learn gold feathers, so on your FFM file, you can't have just gold feathers and no flying. But if anyone could find a way to do that, that actually would save a bit of time in, I reckon, a few categories. But anyway, we got Click Clock Wood early here. So normally with these bit clip setups, you're coming in from the entrance of the room. With this one, you're coming in off the switch. The switch does put you on a consistent position, so it's kind of like coming in from a room entrance. The reason we don't like coming in from the actual entrance of this room is essentially just that it's very laggy. The camera angle that points out towards Click Clock Wood is a very laggy camera angle, and then that messes up your bit clip setup. It's just not consistent to do. So the fact that coming in from the switch just makes the camera point at the wall, which is very not laggy, does help things quite a lot. Okay, so we're up here. We just got to do a few what I call twirly whirlies. So essentially what I'm doing is pausing and looking out for a particular frame. So when we do that, you're just after visual cues, and then you want to do punch cancels. So punch cancels are B and then A really quickly. Banjo should punch through a frame and then jump. You'll know if you got one based on you can sort of see the pixels on the edge of the tree stump move a little bit if you get the punch cancel, but it is also pretty hard to tell if you get a punch cancel, so that's one of the really hard things about bit clips. And there we go. You'll notice that when I did get the bit clip, Banjo's shadow went away, and that's sort of the indication you're over the tiny hole in the ground. And you ground pound through just so you have enough vertical speed to fall through the ground there. So we're going to open up Spring. There are heaps of Mumbo tokens in this level. I think there's actually over 25 in here. So even if we had none, that'd be enough to get the B transformation. But obviously we don't want to be going around all the seasons, because we've already got all the notes and stuff we need. We don't want to be collecting extra Mumbo tokens here. So I'm going to be getting 5 in Spring, and they're a fairly quick 5 that I've managed to route out. Basically, you're going to go up the tree a little bit, but then when I go up the tree, I'm going to drop straight down onto some more tokens. So it's sort of a nice little clean loop to grab the other 4. So there's one in the branch here. There's also one on the beehive there, and you can tell these two are pretty close together and quick to get. If anyone runs this route, there's also a backup token. If you were short and had one less here, you could go up a little bit further to the house that's being built. It's if you go further up the tree. That house token is another pretty quick one to get. But here I drop down. That snare bear conveniently puts us on good health. We want 3 at this point. Because I'm about to grab another Mumbo token and take 2 damage when I do that. And then that means that we'll be... Sorry, 1 damage here. And then that means it will be on perfect health coming into Mumbos. So we're on 2 health coming into Mumbos. The last health that I like to take is pecking the flame in Mumbo's skull. That brings us from 2 down to 1 health, which is good. But also, Mumbo has to wake up before you can transform. So you might as well use that time to take some damage ready for the Death Walk. Okay, now that we've got enough damage, there we go. Alright, back onto the starting pad, and this is the whole reason we needed the bee, was to get past the 765 note door. It might be possible to do a big clip and get past this note door, but I don't really see it being super likely in RTA yet. There's a fairly big hole in the ground in front of the door, much bigger than a normal big clip sized hole, so it might be possible to get through. But with our current knowledge of RTA setups in the game, the best way to get behind that door is just to clip through as a bee. But unfortunately that means another 25 tokens. It also means we have to clip into Click Clockwood. Okay, so we're in Furnace Fun here and we're about to see the end of the run. Basically, the whole goal of this run is to beat Furnace Fun. So we're going to do Nimpulse Skip. The way Nimpulse Skip works is there's these death squares that throw you off the board if you get the question wrong, and they're supposed to kill Banjo. Now, to throw you off the board, they actually take down all the invisible walls that normally stop you running around the board freely. Because if it tries to throw Banjo off the board, it doesn't want him hitting the invisible wall that normally stops you walking off. When it takes down the invisible walls, though, we find a way to stay on the board. So traditionally with the original skip, we had it throw Banjo back onto the board just by standing at a particular spot. But with Nimpulse Skip here, you'll see I'm trying to get into Talon Trot just before the death square. Now there's a tiny little gap in between squares where you can use moves like Talon Trot. So that's why I'm trying to line up carefully here. You can see I got it there, but I didn't slide far enough onto the death square. And there we go. Now we have to answer the question wrong. That flicks Banjo off the board. But for some reason, flicking Banjo off the board doesn't work if you're in Talon Trot. So that's the whole idea behind Nimpulse Skip. Unfortunately, if you get a picture question there, it ruins all of Nimpulse Skip and you have to go to another death square. And there we go, timing ends when we do the last question. We had a Joker card to skip questions, so that's how I can do it. Just press B on that square and that's the end of timing. And that is Tooty saved. So yeah, normally after this point there'd be a whole big cutscene about, oh, you've got to go off and fight Grunty again. And normally this is near the end of the game for a casual playthrough, because you'd have 765 notes at this point. But the 810 note door, we're still looking for an RTA skip, which I would really like to find one day. But it's pretty cool that we can save Tooty in half now, but if we want just that little bit of extra notes to get through 810, it's like a whole another half an hour on top of this run. I'd love to see any percent look like this one day, but we will see how things go. And it would be a bit bittersweet, because current 80% has like cool beam movement to grow a bunch of extra notes. So this route doesn't have that, but obviously the goal of speedrunning is to go fast, so it would be pretty cool if Banjo-Kazooie was half an hour on N64 at some point. This is one of the many category extensions of Banjo-Kazooie, so I'd recommend you checking out the category extension leaderboards. It's got lots of quirky, cool categories. This is probably one of the main category extensions, save Tooty, but there's lots of good stuff there to check out, and lots of fresh routing that you can get involved in, because there's always optimizations being found there. I'm going to let the credits play out, but that'll be all for me. Hope you enjoyed this commentary, and thanks so much for watching.